If you look at the forest without a method, you'll miss 90% of the signs. An animal leaves a sign long before it appears. It's not luck, and it's not instinct. It's a way of reading the landscape that anyone can learn. Hi, I'm your virtual wildlife guide. Today, we're going to look at a skill that completely changes the way you explore nature. Reading the landscape and predicting where animals will pass. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's a simple method that naturalists have used forever. And once you understand it, you don't walk at random anymore. You know where to position yourself, where to observe, and even where to stop before the animal arrives. When you arrive in a landscape, you see trees, slopes, grass, rocks. But for animals, none of that is just scenery. These are corridors, barriers, tunnels, shaded zones, and mandatory pathways. Animals never cross the forest at random. They always follow the simplest, safest, and most energy-efficient route. Here are the terrain shapes that almost always predict an animal passage. Gentle slopes. Animals prefer diagonals, not steep, straight climbs. These slopes become real highways. Valley bottoms. Always more humid, cooler, and more discreet. Highly used by foxes, roe deer, and badgers. Changes in elevation. A small bank, a dip, a step in the terrain. These are transition zones where animals cut through. Passages between two elements. Two rocks close together, a fallen tree, a narrow gap between bushes. It's a natural funnel. If you can spot these shapes, you already know 50% of where the passages are. In nature, there are places where an animal has to pass. Not by choice, but by logic. Here are the most common natural passage points, and how to recognize them in the field. Forest corners. When a forest forms an angle, animals follow that edge. It's a protected zone and a logical place to go around obstacles. Roe deer and foxes often use these areas. Hedge ends. A hedge is a true wildlife corridor, and when the hedge ends, animals almost always cross at that exact spot. It's a natural funnel. Fallen trees. A fallen tree creates an obstacle. Animals don't like climbing over it, so they pass right next to it, often at the exact same spot, day after day. Channels of taller or shorter grass. Even 10 centimeters of difference can create a natural passage. Animals follow whatever requires the least effort and makes the least noise. A strip of flattened grass is a real path. Areas where the vegetation changes. When you transition from a clearing to the forest, or from short grass to tall grass, animal activity is very high. Animals walk along these edges. It's discreet, and they can see without being seen. The incredible thing is that you don't even need to see the animal to know it passes there. The landscape tells you. Animals follow 3 simple rules, even when we don't see them. 1. Minimize effort. They avoid steep slopes. They follow the natural curves of the terrain, just like we follow an easy path. They always look for the smoothest route. 2. Minimize risk. They stay close to structures, hedges, trees, bushes, banks. These elements give them a quick escape route if danger appears. They avoid large open areas unless they have a good reason. 3. Maximize discretion. They choose shaded zones, corridors where the wind is stable, and places where their visibility is blocked by terrain or a tree. A single step to the side can make them disappear. When you understand these 3 rules, you become able to predict their movements just by reading the landscape. The wind guides sense, the sun guides warmth, and animals navigate between these 2 invisible forces. The wind. Animals avoid exposed ridges, where scents scatter in every direction. They prefer areas where the wind is more stable, where it can warn them or protect them from danger. The sun. In the morning, they seek sunlit slopes. It warms them and dries the dew. In the afternoon, they move to shaded areas, calmer, cooler places. At night, their movements become smoother in valleys and low terrain. Discomfort zones. Deep snow, thick mud, soaked grass, tight branches. These are unpleasant areas. Animals almost always avoid them. All these small constraints create natural routes that almost no one notices, but that animals follow day after day. Each species uses the landscape in its own very specific way. And once you understand it, you can predict where they will pass. The fox. Forest edges, where woodland meets open fields. Gentle slopes that are easy to cross. Meadows rich in voles. Discreet passageways between hedges. The roe deer. Forest borders, to stay hidden. Soft banks that offer a good view of the surroundings. Shaded zones where it feels safe. Diagonal slopes it uses very frequently. The badger. Humid valleys. Lower slopes that are cooler and richer. Small naturally carved passages. Areas where food is abundant. The stoat. Rock piles and rocky chaos. Stone walls, perfect to hide between two jumps. Alpine meadow edges. Areas where rodents are plentiful. Each animal reads the landscape in its own way. It's up to you to learn their logic, their way of moving through the terrain. Reading the landscape is great. But remembering all of that quickly becomes impossible. That's why I use the Wildlife Photographer app. I record the natural corridors, the tension zones, the narrow passages, the forest corners, the slopes they use, the valleys they visit regularly. And most importantly, I place all my markers directly on the map. And there's another super useful feature. In the animal profiles, you can also see their habitat zones. The environments they prefer, the ones where you're most likely to see them, and the ones where they're almost never present. It helps you understand where to look, and where not to waste your time. Within a few weeks, lines, patterns, and hotspots start to appear. Little by little, you begin to visualize the landscape the way an animal does. And suddenly, encounters become much more predictable. Once you truly learn to read the landscape, you don't need to walk everywhere anymore. You know the travel routes, the passage zones, the slopes they use, and the places where they feel safe. So you position yourself somewhere logical, you observe, you wait, and sooner or later, the animal appears. Not because you're lucky, but because you're exactly where it was going to pass. And that's not luck. It's not a coincidence. It's simply a deep understanding of the terrain, its natural lines, and the way animals use them. Reading the landscape is like reading an invisible story. A story animals write every day, without anyone noticing. Tracks, paths, silences, movements, everything is there if you take the time to listen. If this video helped you, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments if you'd like an episode dedicated to a specific species. And above all, enjoy nature, take the time to observe, and always respect wildlife. It's the animals who offer you these moments.